your product or service has been recommended by someone they know and trust already. So create a situation where it's easy for them to share what you're doing. Make sure people know about your Facebook page so they can tag you, right? And then their whole audience sees that, or they're going to write a review. So using our content is to create some advocacy as well. And if you guys have any questions throughout, just feel free to pop them in the comments, or we can answer them at the end or in the chat box. So the ultimate goal of your content should really be to evoke a feeling, right? You want to know what your clients' pain points are, what problems of theirs is your product or service solving, and kind of help that, or have that be your North Star when you're creating content. What problem are you solving for them? Be why focused, and with much or most of your content, really try to evoke some sort of feeling, and you can pull out what feelings you want to evoke, right? Maybe it's gratitude, love, relief because they're stressed or burnt out, trust, or a sense of belonging. And stop making it about you, right? When you're developing content, you really want to make it client or customer focused. So some examples of brands that do this really well. So we have 2 ads posted. So Lululemon is one of them. And when you look at this image, it's a woman and she's surfing, and she looks really cool. The branding is very simple, right? They've chosen just a few colors and a few fonts. I think it might even just be one font within that image. So consistency is important. It's clean and it evokes that feeling, right? It's inspiring. And if you look at Yeti, Yeti's a very expensive cooler brand, right? But their branding and their advertising really sets it up so that people want to purchase it. They know it's quality. They educate their consumers to defend the high price of their products. They use hunting and fishing guides, right? So as ambassadors, so really making it even more relatable for people who are doing those activities. And they focus on consumers who are living the brand. And that's important, right? You don't just want to put out images of your product or you, though if you're your brand, that is important to some degree, but really it's important also to show what your consumers are doing once they make a purchase, right? What does that look like? So now we'll move into the content pillars. When we're talking about content pillars, it's really kind of what big categories is the content that you're creating. What do they fall into? So 3 general content pillars that you may find helpful to start with are educate, inspire, and entertain. So these ones are really emotionally driven, but you can make small tweaks so that it really fits into your business and your branding, right? Maybe it's more like product, education, and personal brand. So maybe you're sharing a little bit of your own story, right? A sneak peek into your own life if you're your brand. And maybe you're sharing some educational points, and then maybe you're actually sharing information about the products or services that you offer. But educate, inspire, and entertain are a good place to start. So inspire. Where can you build that content that really evokes an emotion, ultimately leading to an action? So people making the purchase. Education, so really storytelling and sharing your knowledge, establishing yourself as an expert. And these are those value-added pieces, right? If someone starts following you on Facebook and all that you post is like, buy this, sale, this is what I'm selling, and they're not there yet, why would they follow you, right? And so it's developing that relationship as well. So maybe once in a while you're like, this is what I'm selling, this is what I'm offering, this is a new product or service, but you're also posting content that's sharing, bits of education, sharing little tidbits of knowledge and tips and tricks here and there, storytelling, telling stories about your clients and your customers with their permission, obviously. And you can do that piece through testimonials or videos, or maybe, and it doesn't have to be complicated, right? Video content we know performs really, really well on Facebook compared to static posts or static images or just text. And you don't have to hire a videographer, especially if you're kind of just starting out or times are tough, like right now. You can just use a cell phone, right? So you can buy a tripod off of Amazon. You can just use a cell phone and film a really simple video. If you have an iPhone or a MacBook, there's editing tools within there that are really easy to use. You could probably just look up a YouTube tutorial or just post real stuff, right? And we see kind of big names doing this all the time where they're really just talking into their phone. It doesn't have to be overly curated, and you can do it at any level and at any stage in time. Keep them short though. So usually on Facebook, if you're doing videos, you want it to be about 30 seconds to a minute long. And then entertain. So this is where we can just put fun stuff, right? Awe, engage, intrigue. And so you really want to promote that engagement with this stuff. And that might be where you see things going viral, right? So you're just posting something fun, maybe a tidbit of information about yourself. This is where you could even talk about, you know, here's my story, or here's how I got here, right? It can be a meme. I mean, your whole page shouldn't be memes, but it can just be something fun and light. And just a note on the content pillars as well is when you're building your content within within whatever pillars that you choose, it doesn't always have to be like, you know, a third of the content you're putting out there. That can kind of shift and morph as you go on, but it should be a relatively even balance of content you're putting out there, not just always selling, but providing that additional value to your audience. And like I mentioned earlier, it's a way to build trust with your audience so that when they're ready to buy, they're going to buy from you. So step one, sorry, we'll just go back there for one moment, Sarah. So as we mentioned, step one is just to identify the 3 pillars that you're going to use to build your content and spend some time on this, right? Maybe those 3 work for you, but maybe you want to shift and pick ones that are very specific to your small business. So determine your content categories. This list is a really good one to keep in mind when you're building your content. Sometimes if you just sit there with a blank slate and you're like, what am I going to post? It can be really hard to come up for stuff. So these are kind of good categories or good starting points when you're building your content. So you can share things about upcoming events or offerings that you have, trends and tips, top 10 lists or top 5 or top 3 or whatever works for you. You know, 3 easy tips for cutting your hair at home. That's probably not one that anyone would use, but just as an example. And those tend to perform really well. You know, even within Business Link, when we're posting blogs, those sort of headlines really draw people in because they come into it thinking there's going to be 3 really actionable, easy things that I can do to make this happen. And people want to know that it's going to be as easy as possible. How-tos, you can do videos on this or demos, testimonials, facts and stats, roundups, best of lists. Mythbusters are great ones, especially if there's a lot of misinformation in your industry. Interviews, and then Q&As. And right now is a really fun time to be able to collaborate with other businesses, right? So you can loop someone in maybe within the same industry, within a different industry, and interview each other and kind of provide that added value to your audience. Q&As, we just did one today with Business Link. So we just went live on Facebook. We let people know, and then people could come in and ask questions as they go up. A roundup, so a roundup, yeah. So we have Lori and Terry asking the same question. So roundup could just be a roundup of relevant news within your industry, relevant updates, right? So maybe you do a post and you're like, here's what happened in the world of salons this week, right? So just a roundup of information or a curated little package of related information. Does that answer your question? If it doesn't, you can just pop back in there. Perfect. Great. Pardon me. All right, so moving on to, sorry guys. I'm just going to take a moment here. Great. I'm okay. So identifying key messages. And this again is an activity that you can sit down and do that'll help you to create content later. So what are the most important things for people to know about your business? What do you sell or offer? And making that really clear and concise. Simple, simple, simple. What are you known for? So if you're already successful, maybe in a small market, why are you successful in that market? And what do people know about you? What are 3 interesting facts about your business that people may not know? Oh my goodness. As soon as Sarah's on, I'm grabbing water. What is one thing that you wish people knew about your company that maybe they don't? And then what are the biggest misconceptions about your brand, your business, or your industry? And this is especially relevant for some businesses. And then, yeah, and so you can take the time to just list those 5 to 10 things, and that'll help you to build content later. Whenever you have a little bit of time to set aside to kind of do those activities that will help you to, yeah, great, I am gonna do that right as soon as I'm done this. That'll help you build content later. Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, we're gonna let Shay grab a quick glass of water. I'll do a sound check as well. Can everyone hear me okay? We're all good. Just a few people, if you don't mind, in the chat giving me the okay, and we'll move on. Awesome. Great. So carrying through what Shay started, so the most important things that people need to know about your business. So yes, what do you sell? What do you offer? What are you known for? What are 3 interesting facts about your business? So maybe that's something that people do know, or maybe it's new information. Maybe they don't know sort of your origin story, or maybe where your business came from, or what the inspiration was behind it. So that's somewhere that you can start there. What's one thing you wish everybody knew about your company? Again, maybe that's your origin story. Maybe it's something specific about your product that nobody else is doing, or no one else is offering. And the biggest misconception about your brand, business, or industry. So again, if there's a lot of misinformation out there and you want that to be really clear and people to know, that would be important to highlight too. How you doing, Shay?
I'm good. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, great. So we can go on to the next one. And then finally, really, when you've done all this work to set it up, you want to show off your solution. So start posting. Sometimes we can get caught in the cycle of planning and we don't actually do anything. So once you spent a little bit of time on that, start posting content. And a lot of you are probably already doing that. So you can see some examples of what we do at BusinessLink. The first one is a really just fun, entertaining piece of content. We had people from within our organization write out the message of stay well and safe within their own language. So that was just a fun piece that got a lot of engagement. And it showed that we're humans, right? And you want to show people that there's a human behind the business. It's important, and it's really important now. And then the second piece is more of an educational piece, right? So 5 steps to manage your cash flow in a crisis is a blog that we have up right now. And blogs and videos, just so we all know, is kind of termed keystone content, right? And so it's a bigger piece of content that you can break down and build a lot of little pieces of content from, right? So I can pull some excerpts from that blog, or some 1 or 2 sentences, and add them to a post. I can do a list of kind of the key points, and then say, for more information, or if you want to know more about each of these, more detail about each of these points, head over to my blog, right? And then you have them on your website, where they might go to your services page or your shop page. So a really good way to kind of drive the traffic to where you want it. And then the last piece is just information, right? So updates on the government supports around the COVID situation are pieces that we also want to push out. So a balance of what we're putting out there. And then you want to make sure you have the right copy. So copy in the world of marketing is just the text that's in your posts, or the text that's on your website. Right, so when you're developing copy, 3 things to keep in mind, and we use the acronym CPR, are clarity, personality, and resonance. So clarity, get right to the point. When you say it, can you say it so that they don't have to ask 1 or 2 or 10 more questions to know what you're trying to say? Get to the point. Personality, is it human and is it relatable? People want to build trust in you, so they have to know that there's a person behind the business. And especially if you are your brand, right? Show off your personality a little bit. And then resonance. Your word should connect with your target audience. It should resonate with them. And what you can do here too is kind of take off your business owner hat or your marketer hat and put on your consumer hat. What kind of content resonates with you, right? And can you kind of incorporate that when you're building your own content and see if it works for your audience? Some of this will also be trial and error, right? And we'll go into this, I believe, in a later webinar, but you can look at your insights to see what posts perform best. And you'll know when you're posting, right? There are a lot of people liking it and commenting on it and sharing it. And then pull some common themes from that and use that to build future content. You can, that resonance piece too, it's you kind of want your ideal customer to feel like you're in their head, right? So you use the right words to connect with the right people, your ideal customer. And if you haven't nailed out who your ideal customer is and the specifics of who they are, who do you want to work with, who has a problem that your business can help solve, right? So really working that out before you start building your content. And then images. So you want to use images or video with most of your posts, if not all of your posts. It tends to perform much better on social media platforms like Facebook. Always using high quality, relevant images or videos to complement your copy. So if you have images of yourself doing stuff, of your customers, of your shop, of your products, use those first, right? And most phones take really great photos now. A few tips and tricks: just make sure the lighting is good. Natural light is best. If you can take photos during the daytime, that's great. Try not to over edit them. And when you're framing the shot, make sure that, you know, the most important pieces are kind of in the center. So little details like that. And if you're looking for free images, there's a lot of resources you can use for really high quality, good high resolution photos. So a few platforms that we've used or we know about are Pexels, Pixabay, and Freepik. So using these, note that with some of these platforms, you're going to have to attribute the author. So just giving them credit for the photo. And be really wary of copyright rules, right? You don't want to be stealing images from places where you shouldn't be stealing them from. And try not to do screenshots. Those tend to be lower resolution as well. And in terms of size recommendations, so there are kind of specific dimensions. A really great tool too that you can use to create graphics is Canva. It has, and I'm not sure if Sarah, you guys may have touched on that last week, but Canva is a platform that you can use. The free option is really good. You don't need to upgrade. You can if you want. It's fairly affordable, and it allows you to create really high quality, professional looking graphics. You can use templates. It's simple. You can add your fonts in there, your colors in there. And they also have free images on there that you can use. Creative Commons. I am familiar with Creative Commons. Creative Commons is also it's a good option. There's a cost associated with a lot of the content on there, but yeah, it's a decent option. And then in terms of image sizes, so if you guys want these in detail, you can just email us at marketing@businesslink.ca. But if you're doing a post on your Facebook page, you want it to be about 1,200 pixels wide by 628 pixels tall. Same with your timeline. If you're doing the cover page, you'd want it to be about 1,200 by 717. And those are all available on the internet as well. And I'll hand it over to Sarah, and she can take over, starting with planning your content.
Okay. I think we're still good for sound, but if there's any troubles, just jump in the chat and let me know. But now that we've talked a little bit about developing the content, we'll dive into planning the content, and so what it looks like to actually share it specifically on your Facebook page. So a few things you'll want to consider is how you're going to be planning. So planning day-to-day is an option. It is a very time-consuming option, and it's really challenging to feel like you're sort of getting ahead with your strategy. So I would encourage you to look at planning weekly or monthly. Weekly right now makes a lot of sense because there's so much changing day to day. Monthly planning can work if you're looking at planning that sort of keystone content. So maybe it means that once a week you're sharing a blog post, and you know what those posts are for a month out. And so that means you can plan your month out. Maybe every Monday you're sharing that same drive to your blog, but you're planning weekly everything else, given that things change in your environment, your market. You want to sort of be on top of those conversations. And this will come into play when we talk about social listening a little bit later on as well. So you'll want to look at maybe doing a content calendar or a content bank to complement that. So a calendar can be nice and simple, just looking at your calendar, whether it's a week or a month out, highlighting those important days. Maybe there's a particular theme that you want to share content around in a particular week or day. Maybe there's something coming up that you want to build content leading up to. So that's something that you want to that's something that you would want to highlight in your calendar as well. So really simple, you can just, if you're working with a team, you can create like a shareable document that can be fluid and changed and edited as you guys go. That's a really nice way to have another set of eyes on it as well. So whether it's just you managing the page or you've got other people on your team that are managing it with you, it helps give you a really cohesive picture of what's to come. And then a content bank is really helpful to avoid those times when you're just sitting, trying to come up with that content and you feel like you're at a bit of a block or you're stuck. So sometimes you'll feel really inspired to write a lot of different content ideas or types of posts that you want to share down the road. So you can sit down, flush all of that out. And so that avoids maybe sitting at the beginning of your week, sort of wondering what you'll start to share the week off with. You can go into that content bank and feel inspired there. And a good place you can find a free calendar to fill out. A Google Calendar is a really easy option. It's shareable, you can access it anywhere. The templates, I typically just design my own template. And so what I found to be successful is I have the dates of the week at the top, and then I've got a line for each of my platforms. So if you're just doing Facebook, that's really easy. Trello's a really great tool as well. But if you're just doing one platform, it's really easy to manage. A content calendar will be helpful for you once you start looking at the other platforms and sort of weaving your content all together, because you can see how they complement each other and how everything fits in that big picture of yours. So we'll move on here. So when you're looking at content under those three main pillars that Shay touched on, so as an example, if you're educating, do you struggle with blank? So for example, if you're a delivery service, making healthy dinners for the whole family, here's a tip to solve that. And so when you're making your content bank, you can sort of build off of these things. So maybe you have posts that say, do you struggle with blank? Are you looking to incorporate more of this in your meals? Those sorts of things are really easy to sort of pull and post. And they're really educational because it's directly talking about your product. Inspiring, so telling your story. So again, maybe people aren't aware of your origin story, or you have a story about you personally or your business that's occurred in the last few weeks that you want to share with people. So 3 years ago, I was always tired, busy, burnt out, and then I found balance by. So maybe you offer a wellness service, or you're live streaming a meditation class over the next couple of weeks. Something like that would coincide really well with this type of copy. And then entertaining. So I absolutely love blank about my team. What do you love about your coworkers, your team? So as Shay mentioned, that human aspect is really important. And so when we look back even at that business link post where everyone was able to share the message in their language, offers you the chance to, one, connect with your team and your people, and two, to show your consumers and your audience that there is someone behind the scenes and they can relate to that much more. So a couple of planning tools. Facebook specifically has a nice scheduling tool that you can use from the Business Manager page. So you can access that once you set your page up. You can schedule your content out, and then you can see it as day to day. So you can sort of look out, if you're planning for the week, you can go in and schedule your week out, and then see maybe where you have some gaps or there's opportunity to fill in some other pieces. Later and Planoly are great tools. They'll complement your Instagram accounts really well. And now that Facebook and Instagram are linked together, it's really easy to take an Instagram post to then share to your Facebook page to sort of build your feed there. Hootsuite is a nice tool as well that allows you to schedule in. Again, you can use it for more than one platform. So once you're building out that more comprehensive strategy, you can use it across multiple channels. But again, as you're starting out, that Facebook scheduling tool is a really nice tool to sort of get a feel for what that looks like. Just see if we have any questions. No, okay, great. So we'll chat a little bit about social listening. So what is social listening? Sort of just means having your finger on the pulse within the ecosystem of your business. So why is it important to know what's going on and to be aware of your environment? It allows you to be relevant and have a say in those important conversations. So for example, COVID is everywhere, and it would almost be irresponsible for your business not to acknowledge it. So being aware of those things on the large scale and on the smaller scale as well. It's important to know when it should be acknowledged, and if it's relevant for you and your business, to acknowledge it. puts a voice to your brand. Again, it puts a person behind the channel. So the people who are on your page and who are interacting with you know that there's someone there who's responding to them, creates that human element. And that in turn will reinforce trust in your brand. So trust is really, really critical. If people don't trust the information on the page and they don't trust the voice behind the page, makes it that much more challenging to convert them. So you really want to ensure that people are trusting the information and they're trusting that voice. And it keeps you informed. It can help inspire you when you're developing content because you're able to see what the conversation looks like amongst other people within your industry or beyond your industry. That can then inspire content for you, and it can maybe sort of shift up and break those posts that you're scheduling normally. It can kind of give them some new life if you're feeling a little bit more inspired by what you've seen elsewhere. So your levels of listening, sort of two buckets. So your micro environment, your macro environment. So micro is things that'll directly tie to you on a smaller scale, macro on a big scale. So for example, your immediate ecosystem, your hyperlocal community, and your location. So if you're operating in a rural environment, things that will be important to you will be important to the people of that city, of that area. And if we're talking macro environment, that's within your industry, within the greater scope of your business, what's happening online, and then just what's happening in the world at that point in time as well. So to give you a bit of an example, let's say that you own a coffee shop. And we'll say for your micro environment, things that'll be important for you to know is maybe the weather, or if there's something that's preventing people from coming to your physical space. So let's say it's the wintertime and there's a snowstorm. Again, it would be irresponsible to acknowledge that your business is closed because the roads aren't accessible, and to have people who would maybe assume that your business is still operating and open, think of the experience for them there to not be informed. That again creates a bit of a gap in the trust in the brand and the business. So you want to be aware of those sorts of things and how you're communicating out. So think of maybe an event, maybe an emergency or a crisis that's happening in your immediate area. So could be also as simple as a stock shortage. So perhaps due to some weather elsewhere, there's maybe a delay in shipments and you don't actually have all the products you normally serve to people. And maybe you only have one type of espresso bean available. Maybe you actually don't have any food service available because you haven't received your stock. So that's important to communicate out to your guests. Your macro environment, so big picture, what you're looking at. Again, COVID is a really good example. You'll want to acknowledge what are the things your business is doing to adapt and to shift. So obviously your space would be closed, but what other offerings do you have? Are you selling coffee beans or maybe kitchen supplies to people? Are you doing door-to-door service? What sorts of things that will be relevant to them to know? And then let's say without the immediate crisis at hand, let's say just time of year. So if it's summertime, are you promoting hot drinks or cold drinks? If it's the wintertime, are you promoting things that people would associate with, those warm, fuzzy feelings of the winter, or are you then promoting, again, an iced beverage that might not really encourage someone to get up off their couch and come to your space? So just a few examples of the micro versus macro environment. And when you're considering engaging, you'll always want to ask yourself, is it relevant for my target audience? So does it actually matter to them? Will they find value in the content? And is it going to resonate with them? So again, as Shay mentioned, it's really difficult to determine this if you don't have that persona in mind or you don't know who that ideal customer is. And so Carrie touched on this last week as well, but identifying that persona and listing out, this is Susie, she likes this, she is of this demographic, really fleshing out that persona will help you to identify, okay, if I'm engaging, is it going to resonate with my audience and will it resonate with Susie? So we look at an example, we'll look at Yeti again. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. So if we look at how they're engaging with our environment right now, back to COVID again, because it's such an immediate and tangible example. So on the left, you'll see they've got their communication about what their business is doing and shifting and adapting in light of all of the changes. And that's actually at the top of their page. So once you land on their page, you know that they're aware of what's going on. They've made a recent statement because it's a timely statement. It wasn't posted back at the beginning of March, as we know that things have shifted so much day to day. And so you want to ensure that what people are reading is the most up-to-date communication. Can you? Yes, absolutely. I can slow down, Terry. The second picture, again, touching on COVID, but now they're engaging in a different conversation. So they're talking about staying at home, having your companion at home, now that we've all shifted and adjusted to a work from home lifestyle. So they're still talking about COVID and the direct impact, but they're driving it back to their product by engaging in another, I guess, bucket of that conversation. So rather than the copy reading, yes, we're all staying at home because of COVID, it's a lighter piece. The emotion that's sort of invoked from the photo is a little bit lighter. It puts a bit of a smile on your face, but it's still part of that same conversation, and it's driving back to their product. And then on the last, on the right side, Earth Day. So they're acknowledging that they're part of the conversation. They're aware that it's Earth Day. They're a brand that stands for, you know, sustainability and the environment. And so again, it would almost be irresponsible to not acknowledge that, yes, it is Earth Day and we're celebrating this day as a brand. They're sharing a story, and again, they're driving back to their product. So they're a part of the conversation, they're aware of the conversation, and they're offering something valuable to the conversation. So the filter that I would encourage you to go through when you're starting to listen into your ecosystem, step one would be to listen, to do that. So to understand the conversation, look at where you're getting the information. So have you seen just one post, or have you seen a lot of people engaging in this conversation? Who are you following that's engaging in this conversation, and what ecosystem are they a part of? Are they within your industry? Are they in the same community as you, the same physical space as you, those sorts of things? You'll want to set aside time to do this almost daily, because you'll want to, again, have your hand on the pulse. You'll want to be aware when the conversation shifts and when is the right time to engage. And when you move on to that engagement step, what does it look like? So are you responding by liking a post, by thanking someone for sharing something, by, you know, congratulating someone in your ecosystem on a success story? What does that engagement look like once you've gotten to that stage? And then you can share. So sharing just means to share the engagement. So whether it's that response, or maybe you've seen someone who came into your space and is sharing what a great experience they had, and maybe you're reaching out to them to ask if you can then reshare that story on your own page. So it creates engagement with that person, engagement with the rest of your audience, and sort of offers another side of your brand that puts another face to the brand, right? It's not just you in the business, it's your customers, your clients, your guests that are also participating. So your next steps, there's no questions, we'll just go through these next steps really quickly. So first I would identify your content pillars. So like Shay talked about, are you going to work with educate, inspire, entertain, or what are those three buckets that will be most important to your business? Once you identify those, you sort of have the foundation to move forward. Identify your key messages. So that slide said to have about 5 to 10 questions that you'll want to filter through. So whether it's what do you sell, what do you offer, what are you known for, what do you want people to know about you, identify those key messages, and those will again help you guide your content to be really consistent, really strong, and really powerful. How are you going to build and plan your content going forward? So are you going to create a schedule? Are you going to create a calendar? Are you going to create a content bank? What does that next step look like for you? And then would just be to listen in on the conversation. So to listen, engage, and then to share. And maybe that means, you know, you set aside time every day. Maybe it's the middle of the week, at the top of the week, however it looks like. Just listening in, making sure you're aware. With something like COVID, it's really important to be listening in, I would say, more than once a day, to checking what's going on, what are the updates, what's the new information. Yeah, it's so important to be a part of the conversations, and you want people to know that if there is a conversation, you're going to be a part of it. You want to be at the forefront of that conversation, and you want people to then associate your brand as that reliable source of information, a trustworthy opinion, I would say. And yeah, those are your next steps. Shay, any steps that you would add?
No, I would say when you're looking at planning your content, the only thing I would add is just maybe pick a day or a few hours, you know, maybe Monday mornings from 11 to noon, you're just planning your content for the week, right? And then for the last 10 minutes of each day, you're just going in and kind of looking at what's going on and engaging, that kind of piece. But it's really good to set aside some kind of busy time, and maybe it's in your calendar. It's Monday afternoons or Monday mornings, and that's when you're planning your content for the week. And it's sort of protect that a little bit, right? Because otherwise, if you're trying every day to be like, oh, I need to post again today and I'm just going to throw something up, it might not be as effective or as engaging for your audience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then I guess we can open it up to questions. So if anyone has any questions, you can go ahead and you can add them into the chat and we can try and answer them now. Or if you want us to go over any of the content in more detail.
And we'll share the recording with Kate again as well. And this is what you can record to next week. So week 3, we'll talk about effectively promoting your business using Facebook. So it will be Shay and Carrie who will actually be leading this one.
How do you deal with negative comments on your Facebook page? Okay, that's
a great question.
That's a really great question. So I would say do not just ignore them. And Sarah, you can add to this if you have anything to add when I'm done, but don't ignore them, right? The feedback that we get from our clients is really important. And sometimes maybe it is just someone who wants to complain or they've had a bad day, but sometimes maybe there is something within your organization that you can look at shifting, right? And it's maybe that's giving you really important insight into what other clients or other customers or people in your target market are thinking or feeling. So I would say address it directly. If you can address it privately, that's ideal, right? So maybe sending a message and just going, hey, Carrie, thanks so much for your feedback. I would love to connect one-on-one with you. Could you provide a phone number or email, or call me at this number and we can try and address it? I would say that would be a really important first step. If you can address the situation and everyone leaves happy, then maybe they just, they delete it, right? Or you know, they change their review, right? So I think that's really important to try to address it head on. If you've tried to address it and it's someone who, you know, there is really no solution, it's okay to delete a comment in that case, right? If you've tried to, maybe they've never even used your business before or used your services. But first step I would say would be address it directly, don't ignore it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think even just to add to that, like the best way would be to resolve those conversations offline. And I would say putting the ball in their court would be the most effective way to do that. So give them a phone number, give them a private email or whatever it would be, and encourage them to reach out with you there. You want people to see that you're actively reaching out to those people and encouraging the conversation to occur. And sometimes that's all they had to say and they don't need to take the conversation further, and that's okay too. And sometimes they do really want to dig in with you about their experience, and you'll want to consider those sort of opportunities for feedback too, because if it was something that had to do with an interaction they had at your space, or maybe they didn't find the space accessible, or they had a hard time purchasing something online, that can be valuable feedback that will help you better the business at the end of the day.
To the other comments that we have in here from Dirt Road Pretty Clothing and Lonnie. So for last week, you may have to reach out to Kate with Communicators to see if she can get that recording. She does have the recording. We can send, Kate, I believe, is on this call. Kate, if you want to jump in, you're welcome to do so. But we can send the PDFs for both weeks to Kate as well to distribute. And then this recording, I believe, will be shared. So once we have it, we'll send it over to Kate and she can share it with you guys. Great. So any last questions that we can answer for you all? If not, we are accessible to you. So if you have any questions that you're dying to have answered on what we talked about today, feel free to reach out to us at marketing@businesslink.ca. And there's a few of us that manage that inbox. So between all of us, we can try our best to answer your questions. If not, we'll be back next week. Yeah, like Sarah said, just to share more about how you can effectively promote your business using Facebook. So you have a page, now we really want to get the word out there that you have a page. Great. And then if you wanted to speak one-on-one with an advisor, we do have advisors that will work one-on-one with you regarding all aspects of your business, pretty much anything and everything. So you can call us at 1-800-272-9675 or email us at askus@businesslink.ca. Right now, like we also said, we do have a lot of Ask an Expert sessions, webinars that we're offering that you can also sign up for. Great. So we just have one more question that came in about last week's recording in PDFs. We are going to send the PDFs and the recording so that they can be shared with everyone. Great. So that's everything. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This is great for us as well. And we will be back next week.
Thanks, everyone.